Good evening. My name is Phil Easter, historian and writer from Baltimore, Maryland, also known as the Amazing Memory Man. Recording tonight on Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. This is story number 86 on my YouTube channel, which is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man, sharing many stories on a great variety of subjects since 2021. Well, just a few days ago, on February 6, 2026, this year's Olympic Winter Games began in Italy. And the first few days have been fairly interesting already, and I enjoyed the opening ceremony. It was a very beautiful opening ceremony, one of the nicest I've ever seen, and I've seen every opening ceremony on TV for every Olympics, both winter and summer, since 1972. And this was one of the best. But tonight we will look back 46 years ago to the very exciting Olympic Winter Games of Lake Placid, 1980. The story of the miracle on the ice, when the U.S. ice hockey team pulled off one of the greatest upsets in all of sports history. The Soviet Union, sometimes called USSR at that time, had won the previous 4 Olympic gold medals in ice hockey: 1964, 68, 72, and 76. So they were heavily favored again to win the ice hockey gold medal in 1980. And as a matter of fact, the 76 United States team finished, I think, just 7th place out of 12 teams. So the U.S. wasn't really expected to even get a bronze medal, let alone the gold. Other countries in contention for medals were Czechoslovakia, Sweden, and Finland. And as a matter of fact, just a few days before the Olympic Winter Games opened officially on February 13th, 1980, the opening ceremony, the previous Saturday, there was a tune-up game in New York City's Madison Square Garden. The U.S. and Soviet teams faced off in like an exhibition game just before the official games would start. And the Soviet Union handily defeated the U.S. 10-3, not even close. And keep in mind, the U.S. hockey players were young men who were college athletes mostly between the ages of 18 and 22. I think there was only one player on our team who had been in the 76 Olympics. So 19 of the 20 players had never been in any Olympics before. And many of the Soviet players were between 25 and 35 years old. It was virtually a professional team, even though it wasn't called that. They were all listed as members of the Red Army of the Soviet Union, but they didn't have to do much military training at all. Most of the year they spent practicing ice hockey and playing games every year, different clubs and many countries around Europe. The United States and Canada at that time were not allowed to use outright professional players. And so all of our best hockey players, United States and Canada, who played in the National Hockey League, the professional league, were not allowed to play in the Olympics at that time. That changed many years later in 1998. But at that time, most countries had to use what they called amateur players. But so the Soviets got around that on a technicality. They were listed as members of the army, but in effect, they were really a professional team. So for the United States to pull an upset would be remarkable. But sure enough, on the night of February 22nd, 1980, interesting, Washington's birthday, I think a nice symbol. The U.S. did pull the upset at Lake Placid, beating the Soviet Union 4-3. Before that game, the great coach Herb Brooks gave a really good pep talk to his players, and pointed out how they trained so hard for this, and just go out and do your very best. And it was a remarkable victory. But believe it or not, that was not shown live on TV at the time. The ABC network covered the 1980 Olympics, but that game was at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was over about 7:30 Eastern time, but then it was shown delayed later, 8 to 11 p.m. So it's a shame they couldn't carry that live, but for some reason they didn't. But still, it was so exciting then to watch that on TV at a bar. I went to a bar with a friend of mine in Baltimore, and we watched it on TV. And it was just amazing how the U.S. pulled off that great upset. And the winning goal was scored by the captain of the team, Mike Eruzione, in the fourth period. At the end of two periods, the U.S. was down 3-2, but the U.S. rallied in the third period, I should say. Hockey is in three periods. In the third period, the U.S. rallied to score 2 goals and win 4-3. But that was still not winning the gold medal, however. The way the Olympics were set up at that time, there were 4 teams that made the medal round. So 2 days later, the United States still had to play Finland. And at the end of 2 periods, the U.S. was down 2-1. And it would be kind of deflating, of course, if they could not pull off a victory over Finland after the tremendous victory of the Soviet Union. But they rallied in the third period to score 3 goals and win 4-2, and then also winning the gold medal. The final day of the Lake Placid Olympic Winter Games. And I also would like to point out, however, the great individual athlete, Eric Heiden, in speed skating. Eric Heiden won 5 individual gold medals at the 1980 Lake Placid Olympic Winter Games. He won every speed skating event: the 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,500, 5,000, and 10,000 meters. Absolutely remarkable. He was the first athlete in Olympic history at that point to ever win 5 individual gold medals in any winter or summer sport. Now, years later, this was tied by Michael Phelps, the great swimmer from the Baltimore area, who in 2008 at the Beijing Summer Games won 5 individual gold medals and also 3 relay gold medals, 8 gold medals in one Olympics, the absolute record now. But as far as individual gold, Phelps is tied with Eric Heiden. Eric Heiden is still the only athlete in the Winter Olympics to ever win 5 individual gold medals, a tremendous achievement. And he later became a doctor, and so did Mike Eruzione, the captain of the hockey team. He became a doctor also. And it's just a wonderful memory of 46 years ago, the Lake Placid Olympic Winter Games. It so happened that that was the year I first taught a special course for a subdivision of Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore called the Baltimore Free University. I taught the course History of the Modern Olympic Games. I gave 6 lectures, 2 in March and 4 in April of that year, 1980. And so happened they offer some unusual courses at the Baltimore Free University that you don't normally find in many college curriculum. And so happened they had their registration on a Sunday, February 24th at nighttime. So I was all excited, having just seen the U.S. on TV win the gold medal, beating Finland in the final hockey game. And so happened that was the night all these different courses were having their registration, including my course, History of the Modern Olympic Games. And it was great fun meeting some people that night who signed up for my course, which I'll be teaching in a few weeks later, starting on March 11th, 1980. So, fond memories of 1980 Olympic Winter Games. Heiden and hockey, making America proud. I really consider that the greatest ice hockey game ever played when they beat the Soviet Union 4-3. A tremendous upset indeed. This is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. We will see you next time for story number 87, another story on another subject. Thank you and good night.